All right, welcome to our monthly life-saving webinars. We will, for the whole year of 2023 and beyond, my hope is to every month highlight some type of medical concern that not only we need to give you information for to save your life, but we can also change the trajectory of your life by injecting a little lifestyle changes for you. And as you can see, my little warning right here on our title page, the information contained in this webinar could save your life or the life of somebody you love. Just mention that it is Ash Wednesday. So if you're like, Mom G, what do you got on your forehead there? I got my little ashes there. Went to Ash Wednesday services this morning. This is an opportunity for Catholics and Christians as we begin the Lenten season for the next 40 days to really focus on God's immense love for us. And it begins today with Ash Wednesday. So happy to have all of you with us today. And let's get going on this. This is a topic that is near and dear to my own personal heart. And perhaps if we have time, I'll share that with you. But otherwise, in the future, you'll hear my own story. But let's get going. And I really think it's important to emphasize that it's important to know who I am. I consider myself an interventional, which means I intervene in the lives of my clients, health practitioner. So it is well beyond the fact that I am a well-educated nutrition expert with my bachelor's in dietetics and my master's degree in integrative and functional nutrition. The evidence and science-based education that I have received is what drives everything I provide for not only my own life, the people I love, and my clients as well. I'm a trained chef, which really helps to put the science and evidence of wholesome eating on your plate so that you have joy with every meal you consume. And I'm a fitness professional, have been my entire adult life. And so I really understand the value of adding exercise into your life. Now, you don't have to be crazy like Mama G, as I've been through my adult life with all kinds of endeavors and goals. This year for the 60th, I plan to hope to climb Whitney and Half Dome. But to just move, a walking program is a fantastic way to start your exercise program. And most importantly, I think I have become an patient advocate, again, not only for myself, but for the people I love and my clientele, because as you'll see, unless we participate in shared decision-making with our practitioners, we're really going to miss out on the ability to live a long, healthy, independent, joyful life. So your heart matters no matter what your age. I love to start working with people when they're young, parents, who have littles, when they're pregnant, inspiring these littles to, really be able to change the trajectory of their life with wholesome food and calculated exercise. I guess my question always is why is there lack of concern? And I'll tell you what, people spend a lot of time worrying about things like, oh my God, I'm getting old. Their finances. I just don't have any energy. Like, what's my diet? There's so many things that people are worrying about. And I think even more importantly, as we get older, our seniors start worrying about things like losing independence, death of loved ones, deteriorating health, our finances, not being able to stay in our own homes, losing the ability to do daily tasks, being lonely, being cared for by strangers, and falling or being injured. Let me tell you why. This is why it's so important to understand your heart and how you can change this trajectory for your future. Doesn't matter when this starts, at birth or when you're 70, 80 years of age, we can really change this trajectory in terms of your heart health by preventing, halting, and reversing heart disease that can really, again, increase your years of disability and limit your longevity. So we've got to get serious. We've got to get our heads out of our proverbial, what's out of the sand, I'll say more nicely, and we've got to get to the facts. All right. And I know it's confusing out there. I know social media, the internet, Google anything you want, and you're going to get conflicting responses depending on how you ask the question. So let's stick to the facts, men and women out there. And let's stick to the fact that the leading cause of non-communicable, which means something that you don't pass to each other, like COVID deaths in the US, is number one heart disease, followed by cancer, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, and kidney. This is statistics that came to us in JAMA in 2021. It's the most current information that we have at this point in time. And heart disease continues to lead the charge. And I, for one, hope to help lower that on your risk level. And I think it's important to look in terms of the United States, that again, the numbers are staggering. 700,000 people will die of heart disease, compared to cancer. There's how many different kinds of cancers? 600,000, and then moving our way down again. So this is, again, 2021 stats for all of you. And then let's look globally. This is where you really see the expansion of cardiovascular disease. And I travel and have traveled all over the world. Last year, I was in Sicily and I was in South Africa. And I will tell you that the obesity pandemic that's leading the cardiovascular pandemic is all over. That we have seen the effects of food, lifestyle, etc., wreak havoc everywhere in the world. And we see this worldwide with cardiovascular disease being the leading cause of death worldwide. And so we have to talk about it. Realize this, that, we know that cardiovascular disease is 80% preventable. Matter of fact, my cardiologist said to me that she believes that cardiovascular disease is 100% preventable if people were to be more diligent in their quest to be heart healthy. We know that 1 in 3 heart disease deaths are preventable. And again, because of what we know and what I'll share today, these numbers can go up in your life, not necessarily in the general population. And it really comes down to you assessing your risk. What is it? So let's look at this information here. This is the established risk factors for coronary artery disease identified by the Framingham Heart Study, which started back in the 40s. We have tens of thousands of participants in this. And what we've learned from following these people for many, many dozens and dozens of years is that there are certain risk factors that you cannot modify. Can't modify that age, just keeps going up if we have the blessing of living another year. Can't modify whether you're a male or a female. All right, it's given to you at birth. And you can't modify your family history of cardiovascular disease, but all of these risk factors can help us assess where you sit in terms of your risk for cardiovascular disease. Now let's go to the modifiable risk factors that can really change the trajectory of your life. We will delve into these very specifically. Hyperlipidemia, which means you have high cholesterol in some manner. Maybe you were or still are a smoker. We have to look to whether you have out of control blood sugar, even if you're just pre-diabetic, moving into type 2 diabetes. We're looking at hypertension, having high blood pressure. We talk about physical inactivity. We talk about being in the overweight or obese category. And then if you have a poor diet quality. Guess what, my friends? All of these things are modifiable should you choose to modify them. So let's specifically talk about the following issues. Preventative healthcare screenings for heart health do include blood pressure, blood sugar, your lipid panel, LP(a), which you probably have never heard about. You might not have even heard about a calcium score or carotid ultrasound. Let's delve into these in detail. So blood pressure screening, you will have your blood pressure screened pretty much wherever you go, even in your dental office. It is really, right now, the legislation says that any medical situation, your blood pressure should be screened. We need to make sure that when you have your blood pressure screened by somebody else, it's done appropriate. Number one, they just rushed you in the room and you're a little disheveled. You need to tell them, can I have 5 minutes to just calm myself? All right, we want to get an accurate reading. Number two, you want to have both feet on the ground. Number three, if you have something big and bulky on, get it off the arm that they'll be putting the blood pressure cuff on so that we can make sure that we get an accurate reading, and just sit calm and quiet while that blood pressure is taken. Now, a lot of people will say to me, like, oh, well, I have white coat syndrome. I only have high blood pressure when I'm in a doctor's office. And it's like, well, do you test your blood pressure at home? And people will say no. Then I'm like, well, then how do you know if it only happens in the doctor's office, right? So we have to really understand that. I will just mention to you that the parameters for blood pressure and normalcy has changed. Normal blood pressure is now anything below 120/80. So I really want you to recognize what I just said, below 120/80. So if your blood pressure in your provider's office, at home is above that, then you're somebody that likely should be taking their blood pressure at least once a day, writing it down, or so many of the new inexpensive blood pressure cuffs have an ability to just track it on an app on your smart device. And this is a great way for you to just be aware if you are at risk of heart disease and stroke, which means heart attack or stroke, if you are not having a normal blood pressure all of the time. All right, good information there. I will just mention in terms of blood pressure as well, I will have clients who will tell me that their doctor says to them that, they'll say that their blood pressure is normal, or that they're high blood pressure medication. And then I will ask them if they take their blood pressure at home, if they're on blood pressure medication, and they tell me no. So here's the deal. If you or somebody you love is taking blood pressure medication, you need to be taking your blood pressure at home every day, preferably morning and evening, when you're calm, cool, and collected. And we need to assess whether your blood pressure is normal, less than 120/80, 120 the above number, 80 the below number, needs to be below 120/80, with or without blood pressure medications, to consider yourself with normal blood pressure. And if it's not, you need to get on your portal or make a call and have a conversation with your provider. All right. High blood pressure, even on occasion, is like being in a boat in the middle of the ocean with no life preserver and nobody else to save you, and there being a tiny little leak. And over the course of time, that boat's going to fill up. And so blood pressure medication, knowledge of high blood pressure, allows you to seal that hole and continue to go on with a healthy lifestyle. Now, can we do things to counter that in the future? Yes. But step one is patching the old hole with the acknowledgement of whether or not you have high blood pressure, and using blood pressure medications to patch the hole. And then we move on from there with potential ways to solve that. Now, oops, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Blood glucose screening. You're going to have two ways of checking your blood glucose levels with your preventative healthcare screening. One is called fasting glucose, which means you actually have to fast. And it is a one-day vision or view of your blood glucose level. And you will discuss whether this level is normal for you and your situation, but it must be done fasting. And to add on to that single fasting glucose reading, we love to have what's called a hemoglobin A1C, which is really a 3-month view of how stable that blood sugar has been. So between the fasting blood glucose single day and your hemoglobin A1C, you and your doctor will be able to determine if you have normal blood sugar, or if you're somebody that they consider to have pre-diabetes, or if you've moved into the diabetic category. And this is when we really have to be diligent as a pre-diabetic or having high blood glucose on a regular basis in terms of lifestyle changes and potentially medication. And we'll talk more about this in a minute. Your lipid panel. Most of you will have your lipid panel done at least once a year. It should be done fasting at this point in time. There is discussion on whether this needs to be done, but the fact that we need our fasting glucose done there's no reason not just to fast when we go in to have this battery of labs run. All right, so that should make sense to everybody there. So when we look at the lipid profile, I mean, most intently, we're looking at a total cholesterol, which is a combination of things. We're looking at your low density lipoproteins, which are the losers. There it is. High density lipoproteins, which people tend to consider as the heroes, and then we want that high. But I will tell you, some things give some numbers within those high density lipoproteins give a false sense of security. So don't put as much onus as you would on the fact that your low density lipoproteins or losers are high. That's a more concerning factor than whether you have some protective HDLs, because they're not all protective for us. So good information that you and your provider can talk about. And then we do occasionally see people who have high triglycerides. Again, all of these things will assess your risk in terms of cardiovascular disease. All right, so these are important tests to have on a regular basis. Now, this is a new test. This is why I said breaking news out there. We see this in the world of lipidology, where we have lipidologists, people who are lipid specialists out there worldwide, who have now deciphered that this very simple blood test, it's a $15 test that you can get at any lab. It should be covered by your insurance, especially if you're somebody that is potentially at risk. I've never had a client have an issue with it being paid for. But we now know that about 20% of the population will test positive for this genetic predisposition for elevated lipoprotein A. And when somebody has this, it tells us that you have potentially an increase, sometimes tenfold increase of being at risk for cardiovascular disease. So it is an important number. It's an important number because if you have children, even adult children, it's a very easy test to be added to the lipid profile that can raise awareness at our risk of cardiovascular disease. We likely are not going to see this as part of the normal blood panel for some period of time, because the wheels of medicine just take time to chug. But we know that people who have high lipoprotein A, LP little a, as you might hear it said, that if we can reduce their LDL, the bad guys, below a certain number, that we're going to reduce that elevated risk of cardiovascular disease. So we do have a treatment plan for these people, and we have clinical trials right now for medications that will actually lower the LP little a. So lots of fantastic information and studies and treatments coming at us in the world of preventative cardiovascular health. You have your water-based beverage, which for me is water right now, maybe tea or coffee, not making it into a milkshake. Let me take a sip and we'll keep going. I want to share with you that a calcium score is another test that you don't see universally, but we really do see it as a gold standard test in helping us assess initial plaque buildup. So it's called it's a coronary artery a calcium scoring test using computed tomography. So it is a CT scan that looks for plaque within the arteries that has been calcified. You can look right here at the circle, no evidence. Then we move into 1 to 0, 0 minimal coronary artery plaque, and then all the way to the 400 plus. Anything more than 0 means that you have started to lay down plaque and that you have some form of cardiovascular disease. So don't consider yourself with a 10, somebody that's out of the woods. Once plaque begins, we need to make sure that we are doing due diligence to prevent any further plaque from being laid down. And then we actually know with certain medications and lifestyle processes that we can actually allow that plaque to harden and kind of weak back, which would be really fantastic. So understanding your calcium score, if you've had a 0, Want to see you getting that test every 2 to 3 years to make sure you're still at a 0. Once it's past a 0, you never have to have this again. We already know with the calcium score that you have plaque, and there are other ways to evaluate whether you need more surveillance, mitigation, and potentially procedures to help you live that long, healthy, independent, joyful life. When we look at the next test and the final test, we are looking at a carotid ultrasound. Again, this is a test that people fail to have, even though there's somebody that is potentially risk for heart disease. It is when they simply do an ultrasound of the carotid arteries that are coming down both sides of your neck from your brain. Again, you can see from the visuals here that you either have no plaque within your arteries or you got plaque. And so once again, you have any type of plaque, we understand that you are positive for cardiovascular disease, and we need to step up our game in terms of how to stop, halt, reverse the effects of the plaque in your body. So what is often not considered, along with the LP(a), the carotid scan, and the calcium score, is the importance of family history, genetic predispositions, as we mentioned with that LP(a), lifestyle, and exposures. So we're going to delve into this a little bit more. So how well do you know your family's health history? And if you don't know something about at least your grandparents, your parents, and your siblings, you need to start asking. I see this consistently, even within my own family, where we have family members who are not interested in sharing information about their health that can lay over onto another family member. All right. It is really important to be able to speak out loud to family members if you have a disease process that we know is heritable, all right, and genetic, which are two kind of different components there. Anything that can be passed on to family members that you have or somebody else has really needs to be spoken out loud so that you can understand with family history of certain things that you need to raise your level of awareness and surveillance. All right. You also need to understand your story. What is your story, right? I know my own personal health history. I know it really well. A lot of people don't even know their own personal health history because they have not done a good job of preventative healthcare screening. But today we have the really amazing ability to evaluate where we sit in this moment, so that we can move forward with the idea of prevention and reversal of health lifestyle diseases that really, again, say it out loud, can change your trajectory of your life. I need to help you understand that self-advocacy is paramount. I can't communicate how many people in my personal life and in my business life will say to me, but I really like my provider. Well, I'm glad the person has a good bedside manner and makes you feel comfortable. But if that person is not advocating for your health in terms of what I'm sharing with you for today, it might be time that you find a new provider who you also like, but that is willing to help you advocate for your health. What you need to understand is self-advocacy is the ability to articulate, right? So hopefully you're writing some of this down, one's needs, and make informed decisions about the support necessary to meet those needs. And that paired with the value of shared decision making with your provider. And you'll notice that I'm going to talk about providers on the regular. We will see that you might have a physician who could be a medical doctor or a doctor of osteopathy. Both of them she are capable of guiding your care. We also have nurse practitioners and physician's assistants. All four are qualified medical providers that can help you advocate for your own health and help provide shared decision-making. And so when we're talking about shared decision-making, this is what your provider should be thinking. They need to be able to seek your participation as the patient. They need to be able to help you as the patient explore and compare treatment options. They need to be able to assess you as a patient, your values and preferences. They need to be able to help you as a patient reach a decision, right, in terms of what it's going to look like, treatment, surveillance, mitigation, etc. And they help you to evaluate the decision-making process. really paramount in you taking ownership of your health and, say it again, changing the trajectory of your life. So the plan of action really needs to be prevention. We'll continue to talk about that. We get into surveillance. Maybe you have high cholesterol. Well, okay, that means that maybe everything else shows us that you're, other than your high cholesterol, you have no plaque, your calcium score is 0, your carotids are clear, you have no family history. Maybe all surveillance is going to be from that point on is yearly blood work, right? Maybe surveillance is going to be something more than that, right? Maybe mitigation at that point in time is, you know what, I've got a family history, I've got high cholesterol, I've got a little bit of plaque. We're going to make sure we add some medication. I might need a procedure. So again, depending on your circumstance, your understanding, your advocacy, we have a plan of action so that we reduce your risk of heart disease affecting your life and the people you love. So let's talk about those modifiable risk factors, all right? High blood lipids, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, high low density lipoproteins, LDLs. Well, guess what? To reduce your risk, we've got lifestyle changes, nutrition and exercise, and possible medications. So we have a plan. When we're looking at smoking, smoking cessation is the only answer here. And you need to work with your provider. We have patches, pills, gums, so many things. You need to stop smoking. And not only do you need to stop smoking nicotine, people need to stop smoking and vaping nicotine and marijuana as well. It is all harmful to your health. It reduces the capacity of your blood vessels, which leads to your risk of heart attack and stroke. All right, there's no option. You must quit smoking. When we look to diabetes, out of control blood sugar, diabetes, lifestyle changes, and possible medications can absolutely halt and reverse this thing. So this is all good news here. When we look at hypertension, high blood pressure, again, lifestyle changes, possible medications, depending on your circumstances. Being physically inactive. Guess what? I have a solution for you, just like I did with smoking. Start an exercise program. And I will say start walking right outside your front door if it's a possibility. Drive your vehicle to a gym. Drive your vehicle to a mall. Start walking. Go down to your basement. Get on your treadmill. I don't care what it looks like. A walking program is step one. Every major health organization in the world will tell you that we would like you to get about 150 minutes of moderate exercise. For the majority of you, it's walking. And from there, we could add intensity, we could add muscle, and then you're going to start to feel better. So this is one of those documents that we're going to put in your email so that you can get more information if you like, and just understand the value of moving those feet. If you're somebody who is incapable of walking, a recumbent bike, which is a bike that has a seat behind it, will allow you to move those legs. There's just so many opportunities for you to get moving. We always say motion is lotion in the world of fitness. We want to keep those joints lubricated, and your life will change intensely with a simple walking program. When we look to the modifiable risk factor of being overweight and obesity, this is 100% the most difficult change that we need to partake in. And I will tell you that, again, comes with lifestyle changes and possible medications, depending on your circumstances, your emotional connection to food, and so many other factors in your life. So again, we have a plan for you. And then when we're looking at poor diet quality, again, we can reduce the risk. Mama G's your gal in terms of science and evidence-based nutrition education, teaching you how to start to read labels, to plan and shop. These are skills that most people don't have. We get you into the kitchen and get you comfortable in your environment and teach you basic cooking skills. And then with support and guidance, we can really improve the quality of your diet and allow you to not only find joy in your food, but life in your food. So I do believe in the concept of using food as medicine. I also believe in the concept of bringing the family around the kitchen table to beautiful, wholesome food, putting devices away, having conversations, and just being together joyfully in a festive manner. And I think it's really important for you to consider the elephant in the room. All right. The highly processed, ultra processed foods that are highly palatable, high in sodium, in sugar, in fat, that are so easily consumed, so inexpensive, and available at any turn, right? Compared to the beautiful, wholesome, more intact food that we see on the left that actually requires some kind of effort to put together, especially if you're trying to do it in your own kitchen, which means we need to get the stuff, we need to prepare the stuff, and we need to plan. And I will tell you that establishing a healthy eating pattern is step one for you. And just, moving toward food that's closer to being intact, right? Like, how did we get to it in the first place? When we picked the apple off the tree, when we know the wheat, right, was picked, the grain was picked, and then it was taken into the factory where it was ground, and then it was made into a bread product, right? We're going to try to consider using more wholesome, intact food stuff. Doesn't mean that we can't use some processed, moderately processed food stuff, but we really want to consider staying away from the ultra processed, highly processed foods that are, can sit on a shelf for tens of years, tens of dozens of years. In other words, years and years and years, that you can't eat just one of. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. So number one, I want to give you a little bit of freebie here. I want to say to any of you who are on this webinar and are not getting our complimentary Around the Kitchen Table newsletter, I encourage you to go to our website at mamagslifestyle.com. You can see it highlighted right there, and right in the center, give it a second, it'll pop up in the center, and you can simply put in your name and email, and every week on somewhere on the course of the weekend, you will get this newsletter coming to you. Every week, you're going to see a free recipe in there from us. Every month, you're going to have an opportunity to cook with me in a complimentary virtual cook-along, which we have happening this Saturday, and so much more education and information that will literally allow you to live a long, healthy, independent, joyful life. If you like what you see there with all the freebies coming your way, know that we now have the Taste of Mama G Recipe Club, where you have access to me and our virtual recipe library and beautiful, wholesome recipes. I want to mention this to you that, oftentimes across social media, via the internet, you'll see recipes, right, that look healthy. At the end of the day, I'll tell you, you have no idea how much fat is in there, how much protein in there. Are you getting any vegetables? What the quality of the food, in there is actually providing for you. And at the end of the day, is it going to help you reach your goals? All right. And so that's the value of what I offer as a dietitian and as a chef. And somebody who sees value in wholesome food. The Recipe Club allows you to eat all types of varieties of food, Mexican and Italian and Asian and good old American comfort food, but not have to guess if this recipe is hitting the marks in terms of your calories, your protein, your fat, your wholesome food stuff, etc. So just know that's available anytime in the future. And then several times a year, we run our 12-week virtual group experience, which is when you really can customize a nutrition plan to help you change your lifestyle. So let's continue with the education. What is the best diet approach? And I love World of News Reports puts out this best diets every single year in January, and it lists all the diets, from what they consider something that's going to be more healthful to really things that are harmful at the end. And I will tell you that even with this, really nice synopsis of, the top 20, 30 diets, that we've seen from that previous year, people are still lost and confused. And this is where, there is no particular one diet approach that really resonates for everybody. So you may go to your provider and they may say to you, you need to lose weight and start exercising. Well, what exactly does that mean? You might have one provider that says, eat a Mediterranean diet, but maybe you love other food cultures. Maybe you don't subscribe to that particular lifestyle approach. Maybe they're going to tell you to go on the ketogenic diet, or maybe they're going to tell you to go on the paleo diet. I mean, there's so many providers out there. Number one, your providers have very little education in terms of nutrition. So they're not really the expert that they should be sending you to. Your provider should be sending you to a well-educated nutrition professional to guide you, somebody like Mama G, obviously. And then when it comes to exercise, I've heard providers tell, 60-something-year-old males who have never exercised a moment in their daily life to go out and do high-intensity interval training. So understand the value of your providers and what they can offer for you, and understand the value of fitness professionals and nutrition experts out there to help you dial in what is the best approach for you and the people you love. So, I always say, who's your nutrition influencer? Is it the latest diet book? I have people say to me all the time, hey, did you read that book, Mama G? And I'm like, if you knew how many books there are out there, literally millions, you will know that I did not read that diet book. 100% didn't. Maybe it's your neighbor, right? You had your neighbor who just lost 50 pounds and they're like, oh man, you got to try this new diet I tried. All right. Well, again, I will say to you that the majority of people who seek me out tell me that the diets that they've been on in the past were successful. And then I ask them why we're actually having this conversation. And then they tell me, well, when I went off the diet, I gained the weight back. All right. When this had nothing to do with their health. So again, going on a diet, being in a restrictive and punitive approach, which limits your calories, however it's done, is a way to lose weight in the moment, if that's a goal. But it has nothing to do with the quality of food you're consuming. It has nothing to do with your health, and it has nothing to do with a sustainable diet approach that will change the trajectory of your life. Again, I mentioned your influencer could be a medical provider. Be careful. Be careful with their nutrition education, because it is minimal, if any. And it could have been, a million years ago back in med school. My daughter, who's in PA school right now, happens to have an entire course on nutrition, but it is only going to be a tiny bit of her education. And luckily she's got Mama G as her mama, so she's learned a lot, but most people are not going to have that education in terms of being your medical provider. So you've got to seek others who can help you in a helpful way. Social media is really the demise of society. There is so much that comes across social media in so many aspects, especially in the diet world, that it scares me, and it scares me for the people that I love and my clients as well. And then Dr. Google, be very careful. Again, how you pose your question is going to come back with information that you think you're seeking, and it may not be. So if weight loss, my friends, is your goal, take any diet you want. It is a $946 billion healthy eating, nutrition, and weight loss industry. You got any choice you want. So whatever sounds good for you, go for it. And then, by the way, we look at the exercise component of it, $738 billion industry. I know that a majority of you think that by adding exercise, you're going to lose weight, but I'm going to tell you right now, you cannot out-train that bad diet. And you may be able to do it for a moment, but it's not going to work for the long haul. So between getting into a healthy eating pattern and a consistent physical activity regime, your life can change. But again, if you simply want to lose weight, have fun, join a gym, go on a diet. Let me know how that works. Mama G will be here waiting for you in the future when you're ready to make serious change. And, as I said, there's a million diet approaches out there, right? What exactly is clean eating? And people say, like, I eat really clean, Mama G, I eat really healthy. Guarantee your view of clean and healthy is completely different than mine. Ketogenic diet is one of the most harmful diets out there. It's high fat, medium protein, which is usually high fat protein options, very limited plants in your life. And while it skirts the normal metabolic pathway, so people lose weight very quickly, immediately you will put that weight back on when you go back to your normal eating, and it is harmful to your health. When we get into things like paleo and low fat and low carb and high protein and mind diets, we see intermittent fasting and time restricted eating. And then we get into things that I would consider more reasonable and wholesome, like the Mediterranean diet. But does that mean I don't get to have Asian food or Hispanic food? Like, I'm not really a fan of all those things. So what are your goals? I'll say it again. My goal is a long, healthy, independent, joyful life. And contrary to popular belief, you actually can have your cake and eat it too. But the goal is that we've got to get you into some kind of calorie budget, into a healthy eating pattern to help you restrict calories somewhat, not painfully though. So we get all your nutrients in, we get you eating throughout your day, get into a nice routine so you're not hungry, so that we stabilize your blood sugar. And then, as you begin to exercise and feel better and have more energy, we lose weight or gain weight depending on your situation, or maintain your weight. And then guess what? You can add treats and splurges in a calculated way. It doesn't mean you go back to your old ways. So the reality is that we're in an obesity pandemic. And the reality is that my grandchildren, not mine, I'm going to tell you that, not mine under my watch, but my grandchildren are predicted, the grandchildren of the world are predicted to live shorter lives than their parents because of our food choices and our lack of exercise. And this must raise our alert. And this means we need to start role modeling healthy behaviors to change that from happening. Nothing is worse than seeing littles that already have overweight or obesity and already have high blood sugar and already have high cholesterol. And this did not happen on their own. This is a ramification of the food behaviors and the exercise behaviors that their parents and the people that are caring for them are providing for them. And you and I have to say no. So this is the reality of the aging process. And I was just talking to my sister who said to me today, this aging thing is for the birds. I remember my mom saying exactly the same thing, but here's the deal. Yeah, you know what? Getting older, the wrinkles, the skin hanging, the losing of the vision and the hearing, like kind of sucks. But also understand the blessing of getting older is all the memories you have with the people you love and the experiences you have. And my goal for you is to keep you moving. I don't want to see you stuck in a wheelchair, stuck on the couch, stuck in your bed. And I want to help you understand that you can help yourself. Now, unfortunately, tragic things happen, accidents, cancers, horrific diseases that steal our life. But I'm talking about the majority of us who have the ability to have a long, full life. We can change what that trajectory looks like. So the reality is that we have these lifestyle diseases that, we are actually causing, right? Things that cause us to have high blood pressure, high blood sugar, high blood lipids that can lead us to have why we're here today: heart disease, the #1 killer of humans globally, stroke, diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, chronic, COPD, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. People, leave me alone. And some cancers like colorectal cancers. These are called lifestyle diseases because of our behaviors and our lack of understanding things like family history, genetics, that we need to be aware of to raise our level of concern. So you got to be careful. As I said, internet, social media, the demise of society. You got to be careful with doing your own research. I love this little meme. Hey, honey, come back. I just found information that all of the world's top scientists and doctors missed. Can I pull my hair out of my head? And this one I love as well. The fact is, I want truth, so I'm going to do my own research. So when you type in, the ketogenic diet, is the ketogenic diet healthy? Instead of saying, is the ketogenic diet unhealthy? Top of the Google search is you're going to hear why people say the ketogenic diet is healthy. Again, just because it's on the internet does not mean it's fact, science-based, evidence-based, or anything else. So be very careful. I want you to consider your weight goals and your health goals. All right. Because those are the things that are going to matter in terms of your longevity and decreased disability. And I want you to consider prioritizing wellness. All right. Getting into that healthy eating pattern, getting into our exercise program, finding relaxation and stress reduction, and allowing yourself to sleep appropriately. And in the integrative health model, which is where my training is, the belief system is that, your health is a reflection of your diet, the stress in your life, the hormones in your life, your genetics, medications and supplements, exercise, toxin exposures, digestion and sleep. But I will tell you, in my world and understanding the value of using food as medicine, that our diet reflects to all of these aspects, and all of these aspects reflect back to our diet based on what we're eating and what we're not eating. And so your food approach is paramount to your success. So this is the reality of the aging process. Yeah, we're going to slow down. Yeah, we might need a little cane or a little arm to help us, make it places depending on how many years we're blessed on this earth. But using food as medicine will completely alter what the future can look like for you. So I like people to, be realistic. Let's think about SMART goals. You have to think about, what do I want to do? Well, I need to lose some weight. I need to, start exercising. Like, we need to be specific, right? So, I'm going to, try to lose 5 to 10% of my weight, because Mama G said that if I can lose 5 to 10% of my weight, we know that my health will improve. Okay. Mama G said that I really need to start a walking program. So while her goal for me is 150 minutes a week, which is 5 days a week for 30 minutes, I'm going to just go around my block today, right? Super crazy windy out here in Southern California. Just going to go once around the block. And then tomorrow, maybe I'll go once around the block and then a little bit further. So again, specific goals to help you reach the ultimate goal, right? Measurable, right? We just talked about even the measurement, 5 to 10% of my weight, right? And you can know exactly what that looks like. And I'm going to start by walking around my block, right? How achievable is it? Well, I know that I couldn't walk for, the 30 minutes, 5 days a week that Mama G wants me to get to, but, I know I can walk down the block and back. So again, choosing things that are going to be successful for you and moving forward. Again, losing 5 to 10% of your weight, is usually something that's manageable for most people. But again, what's that going to look like and how it's going to happen? We talk about being realistic about those goals and achieving them. And then, can I do this in a timely manner? Because you need to see results quickly in order for you to want to continue with those things. So I think the SMART goals are really important when you're assessing your goals. And I really need to reiterate the blue zones, because, what is the best diet approach? It is not just the Mediterranean diet, which I take offense of as somebody who's from the Mediterranean region, in terms of being Italian and Sicilian, because there's so many other cultures that provide valuable food choices for us. And by the way, maybe I don't like a particular food, custom. So it's important to understand that what we know from 2 gentlemen who were researchers for National Geographic is that they sought out to look for regions within the world where we saw more people, and more specifically men, who were living healthy lives past the age of 100. And they established these blue zones. And what I love about the blue zones is they're all over the world. We're looking at Okinawa, Japan. We're looking at Sardinia, Italy. We're looking at Icaria, Greece. We're looking at Nicoya, Costa Rica. And we're looking at right here in California, Loma Linda. These are completely different eating approaches. Obviously, we've got Japan, we've got the Asian culture and different foodstuffs. In Sardinia and Greece, similar but still different. Down in Costa Rica, that more Hispanic culture. And in Loma Linda, this is more a plant-based, plant-forward population, so more vegetarian and vegans. Again, not necessarily the only diet approach or the best diet approach, but all valuable. But again, diet approach is one aspect of it when we look at the blue zones. But more importantly, it's really about the healthy eating pattern, right? Eating food closer to its original form. Remember, I talked about intact, about eating an apple versus an apple gummy. Quality of your food choices, calorie balance, and then taking into consideration the power of 9, which is family first, the value of conviviality, having people in your life who care about you, being able to downshift, understanding the value of being able to relax and remain calm. Having purpose in your life is really important to having that long life opportunity. Being part of the right tribe. If you've got people in your life who have really unhealthful behaviors, perhaps they're addicts, perhaps they're eating just really poorly, perhaps they have no interest in being active. I'm not saying that you need to get rid of those people, but you need to add more healthy individuals to your tribe. Plant slant. Again, we're not talking plant exclusive. We're talking adding more plants into your life. The aspect of belonging, whether you have a formal religion like me, right, being Catholic, or whether you simply are a spiritual human being and care for others. The ability to move more naturally. We need to move more naturally. Walk down to the beach, walk to the grocery store, move your body, take the stairs. This aspect of it is really important, along with some calculated exercise that changes your abilities in life. Having sociability, really important. And the 80-20 rule, right? Most of the time doing the right thing when we're looking at these behaviors. And so I really love this particular plate. You're going to be getting from us this particular plate as well, but we're also going to send you the Mama G new version, which is coming hot off the press. But I really want you to see the value in the healthy plate that Bastyr University has put out for us. I want you to consider, and I would consider this for lunches and dinners, not necessarily breakfast, because breakfast choices tend to be different, at least here, more like this in the United States and in other places of the world, is that we need to have a plethora of plants on our plates. So when we look to plants, I want you to know that you can have bread and pasta and rice and beans and squashes and potatoes and cereals and so many of those food stuff that so many of us are afraid to eat. But I really would like you to move toward more whole grain, more intact starches. And it's a portion of your plate. It's not the big plate of pasta covered with an Alfredo cream sauce, right? It's some portion of this more intact, wholesome, whole grain starch product there. It is having some type of lean protein. Now, you might see in the bottom right quadrant here, we've got cheese and eggs, which aren't the leaner versions of these things, but these foodstuff certainly have a place. Again, it comes down to portion sizes, but these are options for us to be able to add protein into our life, some fats into our life that add joy, but also to add nutrition in here. So again, seeing value of this healthy plate. You can see on the left-hand side, we're seeing, the whole left-hand side covered mostly with what I consider non-starchy vegetables, an opportunity to eat more plants. All right, because of the value of the vitamins and minerals and fiber, and they fill your plate and they make you feel full. And then we cook these things with a little olive oil and salt and pepper and garlic, and beautiful things happen on our plate. You notice that there is a glass of water on the side. And I always talk to my clients about water-based beverages. At every meal and snack, you should have some water-based beverage. Maybe it's iced tea, maybe it's seltzer, maybe it's water. All right, whatever it happens to be, it will fill you up. It will keep you hydrated, along with all the plants that are going to provide you with hydration. And I'll never have to hear you say again, oh, I didn't drink enough water today, because you will be if you consume a cup, glass, mug, whatever it looks like, every meal and snack, and then, carry that water bottle or cup with you the rest of your day. I want to also mention to you that the fruits come in here. This is where in Mama G's world, my clients will have fruit for breakfast and for their snacks. It's a good opportunity for beautiful, produce adding into our life, the fiber, vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, phytochemicals that we see in these foods. But it also allows us to, have a wide variety of foods as well. And then we talk about things like digestive. Digestives are things like they're probiotics. They're food food. They should they're coming naturally in food, though you can buy supplements, right, with probiotics. You'll see in Greek yogurt and in certain vinegars and in fermented foods that will have these live cultures available to us. And all we're trying to do is add these in, every once in a while. And at the end of the day, we really have this beautiful, wholesome plate. I'll just mention, if you were somebody that will subscribe to the vegetarian approach, which means you're not eating animal flesh, and I'm sorry, there's no other way to say that, all we're looking at different is taking that out of this 1/4, but everything else stays the same. When we look to somebody who wants to be a vegan or have a vegan approach, it's typically a lot of these people tend to be ethical vegans. They don't choose to consume animal products for moral and ethical reasons. That's where you're going to see the only thing changing again is that we're going to all plant proteins, and we've taken away the animal products completely. But everything else on the plate stays the same. I think it's valuable to tell you that I've got the most difficult job in the world, that it is easier to change a man's religion than it is to change his diet. But I want to know that I am committed to the cause, not only because of my own personal scenario, which I will take a moment to share with you now, but because of the wide variety of experiences I've had in life, my education within the fitness world, my education within the nutrition world, and that I see the immense value in being able to use food and exercise as medicine, along with the value of having providers that are willing to participate in shared decision making so that we have the opportunity to do what? To live that long, healthy, independent, joyful life. So I'll just close out. If you have any questions at this point in time, feel free to throw those into the chat bar at this time. Otherwise, I'm going to share a little bit about my own personal health history, and then I want to let you know that within the next few days, we're going to get you an email with the recording that you can pass on to people that you love, as well as these documents that I promised you as well. But, we all have our stories, and this is where it's important to share stories. And one of the most important stories is my family history in terms of heart disease. My dad had 5 siblings. All 6 of them had strokes. My dad was different than the 5 siblings. His 5 siblings, when they had their strokes, they all had debilitating strokes, which means that they had to be cared for the rest of their lives and that their lives were shortened. The difference between my dad and his siblings is that my dad lived the Mediterranean lifestyle. As an Italian immigrant coming to New York as a boy, he had a garden. My mom, also of Italian descent, cooked the Mediterranean diet. It was just how they were raised, and it's how we were all raised. My dad exercised every single day of his adult life. This was the difference for him, who was born in 1918, and when he had his stroke, having a stroke that was more of a warning sign than something that was disabling. He ended up having to be on medications. He ended up having to have procedures to open up his heart valves. But my dad lives to the age of 89, and he had a very joyful life. Now, fast forward to Mama G. Understanding my family risk, understanding the value of preventative care screening, going after the typical way we looked at healthcare screening and heart health in particular, started to have my labs drawn, started to see that my blood lipids were not normal, went ahead and started to have other surveillance in terms of a calcium score, which was originally 0. But my carotids at that point in time were already 30% blocked. Now we raise our level of awareness. Now we understand, because I have heart disease, right? I have plaque buildup in my heart, that Mama G needed to be on a medication to start lowering her risk of laying down more plaque. So most of us understand that that's going to be a statin. On the statin, blood lipids, kind of hanging at it, somewhat normal levels. Several years later, go back to get the calcium score as part of the surveillance of preventative screening. And now we see that I have a positive number with the calcium score, that I have a slight blockage in the LAD, the old widowmaker, the left ascending. Now I can't say it. I'm not going to say it. LAD, look it up. So now family history. Number one, level of risk here. Number two, personal risk of heart disease, level of risk here. And now again, with shared decision-making with my providers, we are adding a new medication with the goal of lowering my risk, which is lowering those LDLs to a certain number because of my story. And the hope is, with continued surveillance, we will see that plaque start to recede, and Mama G having the opportunity to run and jump and play with my 2, hopefully plus grandchildren, my husband, my family, and all the people I love, and continue to be able to advocate for all of you in the same manner. If you don't know it yet, you know, Mama G always says, it's not about what you lose, it's all about what you gain. Have a beautiful day, and thank you for joining me. Take care. Here's to heart health.